Ignore the black texture. When thinking about the British invasion of the 1960s, you probably think of the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Monkees, Gary and the Pacemakers, the Who, the Dave Clark Five. What, you never heard of the Dave Clark Five? Well, I can't blame you, to be honest. They were one of those bands from the British invasion that was kind of forgotten about. Like, do you know Peter and Gordon? Or how about Chad and Jeremy? Oh, and what about the Kirkle? Kirkle? Kirkle. Yeah. The Dakotas? Yeah, I didn't think so. Unless, of course, well, you grew up in that time. Anyways, to me, the Dave Clark Five stuck out from many of the bands from that time. They had this particular sound to them that just separated them from everyone else. I know there's already a couple videos people made on the Dave Clark Five, and they're probably more informative and a bit better organized than this video. But I just wanted to make my own video about the Dave Clark Five because I think they should just get more publicity, and I just really like the Dave Clark Five. I like them a lot. So let's just get started.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Now, just who were the Dave Clark Five? Well, you have the drummer slash the main face of the band, Dave Clark, duh. Mike Smith as the keyboardist, guitarist Lenny Davidson, bassist Rick Huxley, and finally their saxophone player Jim Spencer. Dave Clark was a professional in the business part of the Dave Clark Five. He was the band's producer and held all the rights to their music, which basically means you would have to ask him to use their music in a film or commercial or something like that. It's nice, as you would not have to rely on a third party to manage your music, where they could be unreliable or just sell out your music to someone you just don't want them to sell to.
That sounds better. Just take one back, John. That's fine. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, that's okay.
Just a slight bit more.
It all started in Tottenham, London, when Dave Clark bought himself a drum set to start his own band, that being the Dave Clark Quintet? And you might say, wait, that's not the final name of the band. And you're right, it isn't. That's because it was the name of the band during the late 1950s and the early 60s. At this time, the lineup consisted of Dave Clark being on drums, Stan Saxton as lead vocals, Johnny Johnson as lead guitarist, Rick Huxley for rhythm guitar, and lastly, Roger Smedley for piano. Now you might notice that except for Dave Clark and Rick Huxley, many of those members do not appear in the final lineup for the Dave Clark Five. Well, as usual, bands tend to change members over time. After a while, Jim Spencer joined as sax and Huxley switched to bass, and the guy named Mike Ryan replaced Johnny Johnson on guitar. Wow, what a name, Johnny Johnson. We were getting close to the final lineup. After one more lineup change where Stan Saxton was replaced with Mike Smith and Mike Ryan was replaced with Lenny Davidson, at last we finally have the final lineup for the Dave Clark Five. The band was a local hit and was soon able to rise to the popularity rivaled by the Beatles. And what a rivalry it was. Or well, it was more of a friendly rivalry. Wait, what the fuck? The Dave Clark Five was able to overtake the #1 spot on the Billboard from the Beatles single I Want to Hold Your Hand with Dave Clark's hit Glad All Over. It was the first time a band was ever able to take the #1 spot from the Beatles. Dave Clark even said that they had to hit over 1 million in record sales just to accomplish the task. The rivalry was that of a friendly one, like I said before, as the Dave Clark Five was invited to one of the Beatles shows by the Beatles themselves. They also appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show a whopping 18 times. And as always with these kind of bands, they soon made a movie called Catch Us If You Can, or Having a Wild Weekend to Us Yankees in the US. It got decent ratings from critics and audiences from what I looked at, though I haven't watched the film myself, so I have no say in whether it's good or not. I don't even know if I can buy it. Like, where can I buy it? Amazon? probably Amazon. Now you may be asking,
Well, if the Dave Clark 5 is so popular, then why have I never heard of them until now?
well, because Dave Clark held all the rights to music, he was a bit iffy putting it out on the mainstream media. Between 1978 and 1993, you literally couldn't buy any of their music anywhere, like nada, nothing. It wasn't until 2008 when Universal Music released a 28-track album containing many of their songs. Not all of them, just like some hits and whatnot. In 2009, however, all of their albums were put onto iTunes. And then finally, in 2019, 10 years later, all of their discography was released and put out onto Spotify. Which, to be honest, I didn't even know until now. That was like a year before I started listening to the Dave Clark 5. Dave Clark 5 is one of my favorite bands to come from the 60s. Not as good as the Beatles, of course, but they're still great nonetheless. So I'm hoping this video exposes the Dave Clark 5 to more people and maybe increase the awareness of them. Because in my opinion, they're massively underrated. Seriously, they have some good stuff. So go and get them a listen. If they're not your cup of tea, that's fine. At least you know about the Dave Clark 5.
Well, you can't win them all. My thanks to Richard Chamberlain, Lulu, Harold Wilson, Charles de Gaulle, Nikita Khrushchev, and Lyndon B. Johnson for being on the show. And thank you. Until next time, be good. Good night.
You know, now that Halloween is almost here, I wonder who I should dress up as. No.